Here we go, baby. Episode 3, OT Dub, right now. Christian Wetzel in the house. Christian, do we got you? We got you? Say something. But for some reason, the stream... Hold on. Pause. We got a technical issue. Here we go. Say something.
Yup. We're back.
Yup. Let's go, baby. We up in here. I see Hef's up in the chat. What's good, Hef? Episode 3, Skywalking with Wetz podcast. All right, I got my boy Christian Wetzel up in here. Him and I are going to be talking a little bit about the Super Bowl, a little bit about a UFC card coming on, but most importantly, we're going to be breaking down why it's important to love what you do. But before further to do, Hef's already saying stuff in chat. He said, who let this guy on camera? See, and we're not going to take disrespect like that. We're trying to keep positive vibes in the chat. But there's not much to be positive about when you're a Houston Texans fan or a Houston Astros fan. Or just a Houston fan in general. Astros got a couple, what do they call them? World Series cheating. But we're not even going to go down that road. We know where that can go. And I'm just going to leave that at that. Most importantly, I got my bro Christian on here. Thankful to have him on here. So Christian, further ado, thank you, my brother, for coming on.
Yeah, thank you.
Talking, and just kind of breaking things down. For those who don't know Christian, he's a left-hander. He's lefty. Mm-hmm. I think that's one of the most unique things. Lefty pitcher.
That alone explains everything you need to know about who I am.
Everything you need to know. Lefty pitcher, shoots the rock, left-handed. He kind of reminds me of Fernando Valenzuela. If anyone knows who Fernando Valenzuela is, you know that's Christian. Lefty, too. And I think you got Renly in the back there. Is that your dog?
Yeah, he's chilling.
Renly, we got to hope we don't poke that beast. But further ado, we got Christian on here. My brother came up in he came up in Billings. Moved out to Great Falls. Him and I kicked it in Great Falls. Seen a lot of shit. Dealt with a lot of shit. But most importantly, persevered through a lot of shit. Now we are where we are out here in Denver, Colorado, helping. Christian, tell him a little bit about what you do. Before we start getting into the Super Bowl and stuff, give him a little background about you. What do you do? How do you help? And yeah, let us know.
Yeah, it's complicated. So I've come up with like a 30-second elevator speech because it's hard to explain it in like a short period of time. So basically, I'm embedded within a police department to help divert calls for service. So rather than taking folks to jail, they get connected with me and our team to hopefully get resources, connected to resources that they need, because nobody gets better in jail, unfortunately. So we, divert crisis situations, but we're also kind of long-term case managers in a certain way. And it relies mostly on lived experience. So like what Jake was saying, what we persevered through, that's the experience that they allow us to use.
Yep, absolutely. It's in the blood to help people, man. I think it's dope. It's called crisis. Is it crisis response? Or I think that's what they called it in Missoula.
Right, yeah. Very similar, but just more ongoing care. It's not just in the moment crisis interventions. It's longer term.
Okay. Yeah, so working within the police department, helping people, man, that's not easy work, especially when, police departments getting called, but it's needed work. I think, we can get a little bit into that later, but like when you're dealing with people in crisis, you think about before programs like that were made, dude, like people in crisis who needed the mental health help, they weren't getting that. And when people who are in a mental health crisis type situation, it can look very psychotic and it can get them in trouble. So you're basically going out there screening these people, and making sure that the best move is being made. Just dope. And that's admirable. But we'll get a little bit more into that I know we wanted to touch on the Super Bowl a little bit. There's a lot going on right now with the Super Bowl. Not only do we have one of the greatest sporting events of the year coming up, it's also turned into a Swifty concert, I feel like, at the same time. And then you also, on the other side, people are saying that this Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, is supposed to save everybody from the world. But you also have people saying Brock Purdy ain't him. People are now thinking that the Chiefs are going to go through there, just bust the 49ers butt just because it's off of experience. But if correct me if I'm wrong, this Chiefs team was pretty new this year. I don't know. They got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of new parts. Um, but yeah, how do you what is it like? Like we got a like in there. What up, Jose? Thanks for coming through, bro. Um, do you notice? I was talking about this last week. Do you notice anything different about like the coverage of the Super Bowl or just like sports in general anymore? Is it the same? Like, do you feel like it's the same like it used to be back in the day? You remember like in elementary school, dog, where like Super Bowl Sunday, you gotta go get all the snacks, or you might go to
Mm-hmm.
a little Super Bowl party and it was like a whole big thing. I just feel like for me
Yeah.
personally, that vibe ain't there no more. What do you think?
No, it feels more popular culture esque. Like who's endorsing the Super Bowl? Like the Taylor Swift stuff is wild right now. That is what people know about the Super Bowl. So you got this whole other, subculture of people who wouldn't ever watch football who are now going to watch a Super Bowl because they're going to cut to Taylor Swift in her, $450,000 box, sitting with Patrick Mahomes' wife. I don't know. I've seen like prop bets on like betting websites, like how many times are they cutting to Taylor Swift in the Super Bowl? It just doesn't feel the same. It doesn't feel like it used to. But I could say that about football in general because go watch a 2005 highlight tape. All those hits are illegal, but that's what I grew up loving. I
Yeah.
loved watching dudes get their helmet ripped off coming up the middle. You know what I mean? So it is significantly different.
Yeah, I feel like it is too. Just the way media presents it and just also just the way it is now, like the game. A lot of the sports we grew up watching are all different now. I think the world, obviously, as we get older, there's gonna be a lot more changes. Not only to athletics, but just like the culture we kind of came up in. The culture always shifts, but like it's just I feel like these last couple it just haven't been hitting like they used to. That makes sense, you know. Um, maybe that's just like an age thing. What up, Danny? Thanks for coming through, baby. Um, I don't know if that's like an age thing or what, but like I remember one Super Bowl party I went to. I was like in fifth or sixth grade. It was the Steelers versus the Cardinals.
Mm-hmm.
You can't
Yep.
tell me like the back then, like, oh my god. You know
Yeah,
what I
that
mean?
Santonio Holmes catch in the back corner of the end zone. I know.
Dude,
Oh,
the oh, what was his what up? Oh, Hef liked it. Thank you, Hef. Who was homie? The middle linebacker for the Steelers took one 99 yards.
gosh, what was his name? Right on the tip of my tongue.
Ah, Harrison? No,
Yeah, it was something Harrison, I think.
Mike, not Michael Harrison. Chat, help us.
No,
Um,
and
James
he had the
Harrison.
guy,
James Harrison.
maybe.
Is it James?
And I remember he had an oxygen mask on the sidelines.
Oh,
He
dude,
was
he was
just,
gassed. But like, what I'm gonna
yeah.
say is like, it was crazy. All the boys got together. We watched the Super Bowl. Like, it was dope. And the presentation of the like hard hitting, hard nosed football game. But now it's more kind of diva like. Do you feel like that? Am I
Mm-mm.
tripping? Is like the
No.
NFL a little more? And it's hard. It's kind of wild to say that because they're still beating the shit out of each other. But
Mm-hmm.
like you kind of mentioned the rules. Well, like you go watch that Super Bowl. There's probably a lot of hits in that game that are illegal.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's more diva like, man, for sure. You can pick up on that with like even just look at the stars, right? Like the stars of the game. Travis Kelsey, I mean, obviously he can block, he can catch passes, but what does he look like off the field? He's a handsome
he
dude, man.
looks
He's dating
nice,
Taylor
man.
Swift. You know what I
He
mean?
got he got the
It's
earrings. He got the nice
mm-hmm,
fade. He got like the he got nice whoever his wardrobe dude is. Like he looked nice, but like
mm-hmm.
but that's all. Like if Taylor Swift went to that. Super Bowl 10 years ago, no one would have given a shit.
No.
Like, but why is it a big deal now? You know, and I don't know, man. It's dope that she's there. I'm not hating on her, but that's not what the Super Bowl is. Let's
Mm-mm.
not make it about. Let's make it about the dudes who like earned their way to get there from both sides. Let's not let that overshadow what's going on. But they're obviously
Right.
running with it, and I think that's where I get frustrated. It's like they just run with it. They run with it, and it was like, come on, man, this isn't what we're like. It was maybe cool in the beginning, but like this ain't what it's about. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know what
It's
I'm
like they
saying?
popularized it for the people that would always say, I'm watching the Super Bowl for the commercials or the
Oh,
halftime show. Like those are the people now that we're trying to appeal to. And it's less about the football and more about like Taylor Swift, Usher, and whatever Bud Light commercial comes
dude, you
out when
don't
the
even
Super
hear
Bowl
about
comes up.
Usher being the like. It's all everything else. But yeah, I forget there's people out there that say I watch the Super Bowl
Yeah,
for the
the commercials.
commercials. The
That's it.
commercials been lacking too. I feel like the last couple
They're
years the
horrible.
commercials been lacking too.
No.
Hef's asking if there's any good prop bets out there.
Yes. There's a great one. The one that I will find, I haven't been able to find it yet.
Okay, you got it
What
right here.
song? What song will Usher perform first?
These are my confessions. They saying that's honest.
The betting favorite is Yeah
Okay,
at plus 150.
but hold on. Hear me out. Hear me out. Wouldn't he do that like kind of at the end? And what? It's dark. It's pitch
Yeah.
black. It's pitch
Hmm.
black in the Death Star, and all you hear is. What's this? And he's
That's what I'm saying.
dude.
Yeah.
Come
There's so
on,
many
man.
options. But also imagine the roof getting blown off of that place if he did do Yeah first.
That's true. People, hey,
I mean,
that's it's gonna say there's gonna be a lot of white people out there going crazy to that. You know, maybe just a lot of people. Maybe I shouldn't even generalize, but you know what I'm saying here.
no, yeah.
That's like go to any wedding that's being played.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
but yeah, who you got? Who you pulling for in this, dog? And I hate both of them, but I think I got to go with the 49ers just solely because I'm petty and I'm like, let's give this one to the Swifties.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're probably right. Just because of the talent that the 49ers have. Now, I don't know. Are you ready to talk about Brock Purdy?
I'm ready to talk
Can we
Brock
have
Purdy.
that
Let's have this
conversation?
Brock Purdy.
I'm going to throw what could be considered a hot take out there. I think you could throw any quarterback in the NFL in that system, and they would be just as, if not more, successful than Brock Purdy.
Hot take right here, episode 3, Skywalking with Wetz podcast. Christian Wetzel drops a bomb, and he's saying Brock Purdy is a system quarterback. You put anybody in there, and you think anybody can pop in. You put Cam Newton in there, you think they're going crazy still? And I
You
love
need to
Cam
have a
Newton.
quarterback that can hand the ball off to Christian McCaffrey, hand the ball off to Debo Samuel on a reverse or a
Yes,
slant,
yes,
and
yes,
throw a ball 30, maybe 40 yards to Brandon Ayuk over the top.
yes.
And then maybe hit George Kittle on a check down.
Yo. So this is where I'm conflicted on that whole thing. Where I'm conflicted. People say that. And I'm like, and I thought that. I'm like, but what if he's him?
He could be.
What if he's
But
him?
okay.
Cause I was listening today. I was listening to Dan Orlovsky, the guy who ran to the back of his end zone and got a safety. If anyone knows what I'm talking about, you know. He was talking about him and Kurt Warner were talking about how he's like Hef saying you're out of pocket. Danny's saying T Swift could come out at halftime. If T Swift came out at halftime, dog, I'm turning it off.
I am too.
I am turning it off.
What could she bring to the halftime show that Usher couldn't? I'll leave
Yeah.
it there.
Hey, Usher's gonna kill it. They're saying he's so good. He's so good. But like it's like, okay, he's obviously good. He's in the NFL. But would he have, like you mentioned, like would he be having the success right now if it wasn't for Christian McCaffrey, Debo, Ayuk, Kittle? Who else they got? They got dogs everywhere, and
They're
then that
deep.
stellar defense, dude. Bro, they got.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they got Jamar Chase, not Jamar Chase. Homie from the Redskins, um,
Chase Young.
Chase Young.
Yeah.
Like, bruh,
Their defense is insane.
their defense
Their
is
offense is insane.
insane.
But tell me this. If you switch him with Bryce Young on the Panthers, you just switch them straight across. What does that look like?
That's a great conversation to have because I feel like Bryce
No
Young got
weapons.
I feel like Bryce Young got a lot of hate this year. And it was like, what is the guy
Yeah.
supposed to do? But you, like you
Nothing.
said, you flip them. It wouldn't be this. It'd be probably the same story, if not better.
Hmm.
And he's a Heisman winner for a reason. But like, I don't know. Everyone loves the underdog, man. Like Pat Mahomes is dope, but like to be honest, I don't want to see him catch Brady. You
No.
know, and people are so quick, and that's the thing I get so frustrated about with like everyone has to compare, and it's hard not to sometimes, but like why do we got to compare him to Brady all the time? Why do we got to compare LeBron to Jordan all the time? And it's like then you start seeing dudes start kind of discrediting the people who came before us, Jordans. Well, he did this, and then 2 days before this guy was able to do it. And it's like, dog, like if we're gonna break things down like that, like I think that hold nothing. You know what I mean? What did you do over the span of your career? You know, timetables, I guess they could somewhat matter, but like, why are we comparing so much? Because people like, if you want Pat Mahomes to be Brady, he's gonna have to sustain this for the next 15 years of his life, and this he's not gonna have homie for another 15 years. Travis Kelsey.
Mm-mm.
See what I'm
And
saying?
he has struggled this year. I know this because in fantasy football, I had two Kansas City Chief receivers. Without Tyreek Hill, without that deep threat, he has struggled a lot. Like they did not look great going into the playoffs at all. So what does
No,
that look like when you have a brand new unit? They're lucky Isaiah Pacheco came out and decided to be him
decided to be him.
and be
Yes.
the ultimate check down, or just hand the ball off and hope he can do something with it.
Right.
But they didn't look great for a while.
No. It was they were talking like they're not making the playoffs. Like they were talking that kind of talk. They're lucky they're in a division with who is it? The Chargers, the Broncos, and the Raiders. Is that their
Hmm.
division?
I think so.
They're lucky their division sucked this year.
Hmm.
Could be the Raiders next year. Just what I swear to God, Antonio Pierce has a swag to him. He has something to him that I'm like, dude. But
That
anyways,
edge.
yeah, and they're hot right now, and obviously experience goes a long way. But I feel like the Niners have been knocking at this door for a long, long time. And thinking about it, are we looking at the next Cavs Warriors type situation here, where they're going to meet the next 3-4 years?
Hmm.
Maybe the majority of the next 3-4 years, because I think the Chiefs are a little more sketchy on how they're built compared to the 49ers. I think the 49ers are built to be here for a long, 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 long time. With this specific core, I can't say so much about the Chiefs, but what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I don't think that there's. Yeah, the Chiefs could look completely different next year, and it's just going to depend on how they draft and how free agency goes. The only issue with the 49ers is you're going to have a lot of dudes you got to pay a lot of money to.
Right.
Because if Purdy goes out and wins the Super Bowl, his contract's getting restructured, and you're paying that boy a bag. Well, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. It depends how they balance. It's gonna be interesting because they're gonna have to get rid of somebody. It ain't gonna be Christian. I bet you it'd be Debo.
Yeah, which is tough because he's the ultimate like Swiss Army knife. You can
Right.
do anything with Debo.
Could do anything, man. It'll be interesting, dog. It'll be interesting. But yeah, it's the Super Bowl doesn't hit like it used to. It's not the same, in my opinion, in some aspects. I love it. It's still like one of the ultimate sporting events to ever watch. Um, and it's just high level athletics. I think when you just appreciate high level athletics, whether it's high school, college, or whatever, you're gonna always tune in and just enjoy it. Um, but it's we'll see. I hope it's not a split fest. Like, yeah, show her it's whatever. That's a thing, but don't make it all about her. Let's show the respect to the players out there and do it.
I think the over under set at 2.5. I'm hammering the over.
Oh yeah,
Times
for
that they
sure.
show her on screen.
That's
Yeah.
going to be the first half.
Yeah. Now, if Travis Kelsey scores a touchdown,
It's going
they
straight.
might just pan straight to her for like a good 35
Fuck,
seconds.
screw the guy who got the touchdown. Let's just show Taylor Swift.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, and she's talented. We're not saying Taylor Swift ain't talented.
No.
We're just saying let's check ourselves before we wreck ourselves here. But let me ask you this: would you rather go to the Super Bowl, or would you rather go to this Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilya Taporia fight on UFC 298 in Anaheim, California? If you had to choose, like, honest question, because who else is on this card? Robert Whitaker, Paulo Costa, the co-main. I think they're going 5.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got Jeff Neal versus Ian Gary. Then you got Merab versus Cejudo.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. And then Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov.
Whoa.
I apologize if I slaughtered that. Then you got Mackenzie Dern down there versus Amanda Lemos. Really?
Banger of a fight.
That's going to be kind of wild. Then you got Justin Tafa versus Marcus Rogerio de Lima. Damn, dude, Brazilians are huge.
Yeah.
And I think that's really it from all who I really know. If you had to pick, dog, who would you have? What's Sid saying here? Is the media overdoing the T Swift thing? It's not. It's the media overdoing it. It's not her doing it. Obviously, Sid, but she ain't complaining.
No, yeah, that's exposure.
She ain't complaining.
She's gonna be smiling with her red lipstick on Super Bowl Sunday. You already know.
Yeah, real. But yeah, what would you pick?
I do?
Yeah, what would you pick?
So personal preference, because I don't care for the 49ers and I don't care for the Chiefs, I would go to that fight for 3 of the fights that you named. Cejudo and Merab is going to be a war.
Dude, that's going to be so sick. That's going to be so sick, dude.
We'll dig into that, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Paulo Costa versus Robert Whitaker.
That's, dude. What is it? We'll get into it. Go ahead.
Yeah. And then obviously the main event. That's going to be, that's either going to be a banger or a one-sided destruction, depending on, who shows up that night.
For the main event?
Yeah.
Let's start. Let's go back down to this Merab versus Henry Cejudo scrap, bro. The fact that is the second fight on the main card shows how crazy this card is, first off.
Mm-hmm.
What are we going to see here, man? Are we going to see... If Cejudo loses, I don't see him ever fighting again. I think he's just going to stick to coaching and cornering.
Mm-hmm.
One of the greatest ever. Or what if he puts away Ivashvili, Merab? What, like...
Yeah.
What if...
Yeah.
What if...
No,
like... Because he can. I think he can. I think he definitely can. It's so close. Minus 198 Merab to plus 164 Cejudo.
And the only reason that the odds are swaying in the favor of Merab is because it's a 3-round fight. And Merab can sprint for 15 minutes straight.
Yeah.
But on the other side of that, you have a guy that was an Olympic gold medalist in wrestling.
The reason why they call him Triple C.
How do you take that guy down? Because Merab's striking is not great. No. Just set that out. If you're bored and you want to go watch some Merab highlights, it's not going to be striking. But the guy doesn't get tired. He'll try to take you down 55 times in a single fight. So how does Henry Cejudo react to that as an Olympic gold medalist? I don't know. It's going to be a crazy fight.
An Olympic gold medalist who's also starts to
forever.
Forever.
He's done it for a long time.
It's going to be interesting, man. Triple C, he's from Colorado Springs, right down our way. I'm interested to see how Jeff Neal versus Ian Machado Gary goes. Machado, That's his
Mm,
wife's ex-husband's last name, by the way. Anyone didn't know that. I find that interesting. I'm not gonna, you do what you got to do. But then we got Charles Whitaker, Robert Whitaker, Paulo Costa, dog. I think that's gonna be a dope fight. I think that's because, hear me out. Robert Whitaker, he's already kind of a gatekeeper to Izzy, but Izzy's not there anymore. He needs this more than anything. I think
hmm
Paulo Costa, I feel like he needs it, but he's also gonna be one of those guys who gets those. He's always gonna just take on entertaining fights. He's gonna end up fighting, um, homie, the beard, bald,
Homie the beard ball.
is no, not Islam. Hamzat. He's gonna end up fighting
Oh yeah,
Hamzat
yeah, yeah, yeah,
eventually. Like, and he's
yeah.
just an interesting cat, right? But Robert Whitaker, he needs this. Now, I feel like Robert Whitaker still thinks, and I think he still could contend for a title. I thought that Izzy fight was pretty close. That's going to be a
That's
dope
a good
fight
one.
too. This one's going to be a really dope fight. I believe.
Just
Um,
think about it though, because there's common opponents on both sides. You have Izzy as the common opponent for both.
mhm.
Obviously, the first fight, Izzy destroyed Robert Whitaker. Obviously, he destroyed Paulo Costa.
And humped
But
him
look at how they
afterwards.
both did to Yoel Romero. That's what I think the fight's going to be like. They're going to walk each other down and probably just bang because they both can.
Yeah, and Paulo Costa, he can wrestle too, can he?
He's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He just never shows it.
Because he's juiced to the gills, for Christ's
Yeah,
sake.
he's built like a Greek statue.
Robert Whitaker, man, he was champ for what, a couple title defenses?
No, I think it was one, and then Izzy got the interim. Yeah, and that would have been his second title defense,
Mm.
essentially, if he would have beat Izzy.
Yep, that'll be a good one. And then we got Alexander, the great Volkanovski versus Ilya Taporia. 1 versus 3. We saw Taporia fight actually in Vegas. He knocked out Ryan Hall. Pretty sure I had $100 on Ryan Hall to win by submission. Then he did not win by submission. He
Me
tried.
too.
He got caught trying to roll around and got put to sleep. And he's been on a tear ever since. This one's a
Mhm.
hard one for me, bro. I feel like Ilya could. He had like. Here's the thing with Volk, dude. The greatest featherweight of all time by far. And who would have thought we would be saying that after a Max Holloway run? You know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? Um, but he just got slept on 3 weeks' notice. That's the thing. He didn't have a full camp,
Mhm.
and I hate the fact that he took that fight because, you know, I just wish he was more prepared. But at the same time, like, love what you do, and you have the most confidence in what you do, you're gonna probably jump in there, especially against
Yeah.
someone you thought you could beat. Does he lose his belt to Ilya on what on 298? Do you think that's a possibility here?
It is because Ilya is nasty everywhere, but he's lacking one big thing, and Ilya doesn't kick legs. He doesn't leg kick. He boxes and he can grapple and he can wrestle, but he doesn't kick legs. So if Volt comes out and kicks his legs, beats him into oblivion, it's going to be hard to do anything.
Right. Right.
But I don't know because I mean, Volt can take a shot, but can he now after getting head kicked into
So Cejudo
the
was
ether?
talking about that. He was like, he might have a button right here.
Mm-hmm.
That's what he said. He said there's a button right there. That if I was homie, I'd be going for that button.
Yeah.
I'd let him, you know, I'd be attacking that. So yeah, like who knows what role that plays, and I guess we'll never know because we'll never fight like in the
No,
UFC.
but
But
yeah.
like, what does that do psychologically to some? You know,
Yeah, how
like
strong are you mentally?
he didn't get slept, but he got pinned up again. He was out. He went out for a
He was
sec. It wasn't like a Tony Ferguson type situation, which I hated to see. It was more of
mm,
a, he got caught, fell, and just poof, poof, poof. But like losing
mm,
like that, who knows? But could that also make you better? You look at dudes like Charles who've lost numerous times and then they come back and be better. But like I just feel like yes, you're right. I think Ilya could definitely do it, but there's also that thing that he also has. Ilya does not seem intimidated at all.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like ignorantly, in a sense, disregarding what Volkanovski's done in that division. And he already
Right.
has champion in his like Twitter or Instagram or something like that. I'm getting kind
Yeah.
of, I saw a tweet and I agree. I'm getting a little Conor McGregor vibes out of that, dog. Some old
Yeah.
school McGregor, just kind of like, nah, man, it's my time. Your time's done. Like I respect you, but it's not gonna happen, man. I'm not one of
Mm-mm.
the others. I would have liked to see him square up against Holloway.
I
Or
was
yeah,
thinking that today too. Like as I was driving home, I was thinking about that. Like it sucks because Max is the gatekeeper to Volk. Unfortunately, he's just kind
he
of
should have won the
inherited that.
second fight. He should have won that second fight.
Absolutely should have won the second fight. But Taporia, he beat Bryce Mitchell. But like, if he beat a Holloway, that would have solidified for me that this is going to be a crazy fight.
Right.
And that's why I said I could see this being a destruction on both sides or a close fight, just because if Volk shows up as Volk does at 145 pounds, I don't know if anybody can beat him, to be fair.
Right.
But if Volk shows
Right.
up and he's not at top, top speed, not
Maybe
doing what
lost
he's
a
supposed to be
step.
doing,
Maybe lost a step because he's up
then
there.
Taporia could
Right.
absolutely handle him.
Exactly. And then if Taporia gets that dude, they're gonna rematch. And
Mm-hmm.
this is like we thought Kamaru was untouchable until he got head kicked. And now,
Right.
and he's lost 2 cents. But the
Mm-hmm.
one against Hamzat was very short notice. And I personally thought if that fight went 5 rounds, I think Kamaru could have won that fight.
Yeah. He
But
turned
in
it on in the third.
right, he turned it on in the third. Um, but yeah, it was. What up, Zach? What up, LaFontaine? Thanks for coming in, fellers. Um, but yeah, it's really interesting to kind of just see how that's going to play out because if Ilya wins, he can run that division for a long time, but he's going to have to get through that rematch. And
Mm-hmm.
then, we'll see how that goes. And if he loses the rematch, then they're going to have a trilogy, and this might be one of the greatest trilogies ever. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited for a press conference. Are they going to have one probably this weekend or in a
Next week.
next week?
Yeah.
I wish they do the press conferences like they used to, bro. Um, Christian could be farther away. Zach's saying get closer. Our video editors.
All right.
That was for you, Zach. Um,
I was leaning back, man. I was getting comfortable.
yeah, we're gonna get comfortable. Hey, Zach, we need to figure out how to get this on Spotify, by the way. But anyways, it'll be interesting to see how that goes, man. I love Alex Volkanovski, dude. He's not like he's done everything like the right way. He has no controversy. He just like shows his respect. He's like, I'm gonna beat your ass. I appreciate that. But you also gotta appreciate like the kind of the dickhead. Like Ilya's kind of like the
Yeah.
dickhead. Like
Mm-hmm.
nah. He the villain in a sense. You gotta like the villain at the same time. Like
You're
yeah.
putting yourself in a supremely vulnerable spot
Mm-hmm.
because if you show up and you get beat the shit out of, now you're that guy.
Yeah.
The guy that had UFC champion in his Instagram bio and then got beat up.
Yep.
That's so vulnerable. That's terrifying.
Yep. It's also I was gonna relate it to like the Chiefs. I don't want the Chiefs to win, but you got to show your respect to like Patrick Mahomes and Travis
Mm-hmm.
Kelsey and how good they've really. Um, but it's crazy. These dudes are such high level. Like it's unbelievable. Like we were in like the top of the top at AT&T or the TN or the whatever it was T-Mobile Arena, and
Mm-hmm.
just watching those like professional fighters move and like their quickness, like it's unreal. And to watch two 145ers move around like for a championship, dude, I bet you that's insane. Like we saw Sugar
Mm-hmm.
Sean O'Malley up there, bro, going crazy on what was that dude? Um,
Chris Moutinho.
dude, Chris Matinho, poor guy. He just got pieced up for
Mm-hmm.
what 25 minutes? No, 15 minutes, just getting pieced, dude.
Mm-hmm.
That was insane. But to watch like the speed, like technically I'm like 80 pounds heavier than what these guys fight at.
Hmm.
What does Suge fight at? 135?
Yeah.
So Suge, I'm almost 90 pounds heavier than Suge. I'm trying to cut it down, y'all. I'm trying to cut it down. But like, if you put a 135 pounder Suge, what does he weigh in fight night? 150 maybe? After
Yeah.
he
Easy.
rehydrates and eats. Around
Hmm.
there. I'll give him his rehydration or whatever. And you give me at 220 just thinking I'm bigger. And I pulled up on Suge.
Mm.
I'd be out so goddamn quick. I wouldn't know what would happen.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and people don't realize how fast and how strong these.
Hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Hmm.
gotta respect it, man. Like, it takes a certain kind of crazy man to get in there and fight. To literally fight. Like these guys get up every single day to to train to fight, and
Yep.
it's for glory, it's for family, it's for a lot of it. They're doing it for their countries. Um, that's what I appreciate the most about the sport, and that's why I appreciate it most about all sports. But like this one, like it's like the gladiator type shit. Like there's a lot of
Hmm.
pride. There's pride in everything, but like when you're this is the most vulnerable one out there. You know
It's
what I
just
mean?
you.
It's just you, and it's not like you're bowling, dog. You are fighting another human being. You either going to sleep or getting choked out, or you get beat up for 15 to 25 minutes, and you go to a decision, and you're still like
Hmm.
LaFontaine's saying, "What about a woman's fighter? Do I think I could take a woman's fighter? It depends which one, bro." Um,
No. No.
talking Amanda
No way.
Nunes. I could ankle pick Amanda. No, I'm just kidding. I would. You got to understand something. I think this is what people don't really understand about fighting, and like these professional fighters. They train jujitsu every day. I don't care if they're a black belt or not. They train jujitsu every day. They know how to wrestle and they know how to use their hands. Even fighters that don't really strike a lot, like a Marab, he could still knock us out. You know,
Hmm.
but like these women fighters, dude, like they get your back. We were talking about this during the Duplessis card. They get your back. A woman's fighter, unranked first fight, no matter what in the UFC, they get your back. It's over. You
Yep.
know, they know how to. You punch at them, they're gonna know how to move around it. You just gotta hope you get lucky because they have. I think they just have way too many tools to. What if she grabbed your leg? You know, you could
Yeah, you're
hit
dead.
her. Like she grabs your
No.
leg, she's breaking your foot.
Yeah. And ripping your knee apart and all of the other ligaments in your ankle and everything. Like, we don't understand. We can't comprehend what these people could do.
Right?
It's so vulnerable. It doesn't matter. A 115,
Right.
115-pound woman
Rose
could,
Namajunas.
she could do whatever she wanted to me. And I have nothing for her. Nothing. I'm swinging at air and
The
she's taking my
only
back.
thing you have for her is praying to God you hit your haymaker.
Yeah, but I can't get away from her. Like, I'm
Right.
not
You gotta
moving enough
hope.
to get away. I
Right.
have one punch. That's it. And if I don't get that, I'm toast.
Right. Like
So no, I'm
no.
not confident in my ability to
What?
beat a female
Why do
fighter.
you think you could do something to a female fighter, LaFontaine? Or should I?
Fonte's long, man. He could
LaFontaine,
probably.
he dropped 48.5 fantasy points the other night for the New York Knicks. I don't know why he's in our chat right now. And I'm pretty sure. Let me look fantasy check real quick. Okay. When I ate. Made a blockbuster fantasy trade last night with Hunt.
Did.
You didn't see
What
it?
was it?
You didn't see it?
No.
I uh I traded Kyle Kuzma, David Roddy, and Julius Randle, and I got Miles Bridges back. I got Jordan Clarkson. I got Jabari Smith. Hunt got it was McKinney was involved. McKinney got Markkinen and Capella. So Hunt gave up Miles Bridges, Capella, Markkinen, but he got DeJounte Murray.
Ooh.
LaFontaine says it's against my morals to hit a woman. So you trap me with that question, is what you're saying.
If she comes at me, man, I'm swinging. I just need you to know that, and that's not disrespect. I'm not like
If a
condoning
certified
any
killer
negative.
ran at you, bro, you got to try and
Yeah,
defend yourself.
yeah.
You know what I mean? They're certified killers. Um, but Hunt got DeJounte Murray, Kyle Kuzma, um, Julius Randle, David Roddy, and somebody else. So, anyways, blockbuster
So it
trade.
sounds more even than anyway.
Oh yeah, good trade, good trade. But yeah, anyways, I think to bring it all the way back, I think it's crazy, and I not crazy. I think it's admirable to these people really put their lives on the line to go and fight, and not only just entertain, but like a lot of these dudes, this is their living. Like they sacrifice a lot to do that, and I guess that leads us into our next segment of like why it's important to love what you do. And so we kind of talked about Christian about like you got a hard job. You respond to people in mental health crises. When they're in a very vulnerable and tough spot. And I bet you there's days that you go to work where it's like, damn, this sucks. But you got to remind yourself of the bigger picture. So you talk a little bit why like it's important to if you want to reflect on your job or whatever, but just talk a little bit about like why you believe it's important to be passionate about what you do. Because I see a lot of people say they hate their jobs, and then there's times we hate their job, like we hate our jobs. Like there's days you're like, this sucks, but in the big picture, you're like, this is what I'm supposed to be. I see people they don't do that. If that makes sense, they just kind of work aimlessly and don't really have like a path they want to take. Why is it important to like be bought into what you do and to be working jobs that you know that are important to you?
Yeah. I think for me, the most important part of it is, I mean, I can relate all the way back to school. I don't learn anything that's not interesting to me. Like if I'm not intrigued or bought in some form or fashion, I don't really care. Like I still can't do math to this day. But you put a psychology book in front of me, I'll read the whole thing because that's just what's interesting to me. So every day that I go to work, we're researching the newest method of de-escalation or taking these trainings or how can we, build this resource bridge so that we can get people where they need to be. I think if I wasn't passionate about what I'm doing, I would be less inclined to put in the work. And it doesn't feel like work. It doesn't feel like a grind. It doesn't feel like something I don't want to do. But I mean, I've known forever, and I'm sure you have too. My passion's always been I wanted to help people. Well, the reason why has changed over time, obviously. Um, but it's just always been something that's been a part of my life, I think. Um, and also, I think that there's people in the field that selfishly love the reassurance that they're helping, right? Which is like the simplest way to look at it because
Right.
95% of the time, things aren't going great. And then the 5% of the time, things go good. So you feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I've really embraced the helping that 95%, those people that, have fallen off the radar or are under resourced or don't have what they need. And then there's the human part of it where, empathy goes a long way. If I put myself in that person's shoes,
Mm-hmm.
what would I hope somebody would do for me that day?
Right.
And it could be simple, it could be complex, it could be just, letting this person vent for 20 minutes that keeps them out of a jail cell for 60 days. You know what I mean? Like,
Right. Yeah.
it doesn't have to be that complicated.
Yeah, and I think it also just boils down to how you came up, like not specifically you, but like how people come up, right? So I'm like in the same boat. I work in the schools, and it's like because we help people. I think it's because for one, you and I specifically and personally have seen a lot of things, had to mature at a very young age, and had to experience things that not a lot of people did. I think from an early age, we're like, yeah, we want to help people, teaching or you know addiction counseling or whatever it is. I think like a lot of that's probably based off of how people come up, right? And you said you're able to like relate or think like, what could I do to, what would I have hoped someone would do if I was in this? Because you've probably seen that. You've seen that. In your life where you didn't get the resources or people got screwed over. Um, that's why it's important to have like that why. I remember my coach in college, JC. He'd always talk about like your why. Like, why do you do what you do? Sometimes, like when you're having a shit day, I was having a shit day the other day because I'm sick and whatever, and you can lose perspective of like, why am I doing this? Then you remind yourself, this is why. Then I go out to the hallway and this kid needs help, and you talk to this kid and you're like, that's why. Then you can see that immediate change like you do. You get this person what they do or what they need. You see that immediate change and impact. And I think for people like us, you like to see that impact. Other people are programmed a little differently, right? Like some people are programmed like their job isn't really to help people. It's just to, in a sense, it probably helps people, but to make as much money as they can. Or they're in high paying jobs where it's like they're sitting at a desk all day programming, or they're going through files or whatever it may be. And so I've always wondered, like, do people really enjoy that, or are they just doing it for the check? And like, I think where it gets conflicted or twisted with especially kids our age, dudes are always thinking about that check. And I don't always think about the check. I want to make money to make sure I'm good, but I wouldn't be
Mhm.
doing what I'm doing if it was for the check. You know what I mean? And that's why you
Right.
got to think about the why. The why about the check, partially, or you know, is it about making community and people around us better? You know, do you feel the same way? Do you feel like you could go sit at a job and program all day? I mean, the money would be there and you'd be able to have dope things, but like some of those things, like I just couldn't do it, dog. Like
Right.
I don't know.
No, with I think what you're alluding, like with what the way we came up, the stuff we saw, I couldn't, man. I don't have it in me to sit at a desk and do that stuff. And I recognize that right away. And I'll also say that when I chose my degree in college, I embraced that I'm going to be broke for the rest of my life because there's no money in helping people in the
Right.
grand scheme unless you're really groundbreaking or whatever. But I think through the process of coming up, and it's something that I've worked on a lot, I thrived in chaos. Like when there's a million things going on, that's when my brain thinks the best.
Mm-hmm.
In those moments where people crumble and feel like they're overwhelmed, that's when I'm like crystal clear. I can see a path to getting this person what they need. Granted, that can be bad because you can create your own chaos, which is what I've had to work on.
Right.
Um, but I need to be, what's the word I'm looking for? I need to be interested. I need to be intrigued. Gosh dang, it's right there.
Engaged,
No, it's stimulated, basically,
stimulated. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
consistently.
Yeah.
I need to use that part of my brain where, my input in this moment is important for this person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, I think through our upbringing, we see a path that maybe people don't see. And, like I get complimented oftentimes on the ability to think creatively. But I think that's just how our brains were wired, right?
Kind
Like
of
we
had
just
to.
saw things, right? And things were just, the path was different for us in that way.
Right.
So no, if I sat in office, I would go crazy. I would be a problem. I would, yeah, no. The money would be wonderful. Don't get it twisted, but not in my capacity.
Yeah, man. It's interesting. Because I think it is so important to love what you do, man. And like I said, there's days where I come home from work, I'm like, I never want to go back. But then, like, you wake up and get your head off that pillow in the morning. You're like, yeah, let's get after it again, And like you said, I liked how you really said thrive in chaos, because we basically did, in our own respects. And like during like very like when people get really, I don't want to say stimulated, but like individuals get like really worked up, you know, they start to fall apart, and I find myself having to like tell like coworkers and stuff like just relax, like how you doing right now, like it's okay, right? When things get super stressful, um, that's where I feel like there's something in the brain that just clicks, right? I don't really know what it is. Mine looks a lot different than yours, obviously, because I'm working like with kids, and like in a school setting. But like some people like that, the pressure part of it. I feel like the pressure sometimes something I like, and I think that's why I also loves playing sports. I'd get nervous, obviously, during pressure moments, but like I love that shit. Uh, some people really struggle, and I think that's something like you kind of said, like I enjoy that in a sense. I really like where we gotta figure this out right now, and then once you figured it out, you're like, yeah, let's go. You know,
Hmm.
it's like it's so fulfilling and so rewarding, especially when it goes to the benefit of like another human being. And that's what makes me come back, and that's why I love what I do. And like what we were talking about the fighters, like they gotta love what they do. You know, the cameraman that goes to the Super Bowl's gotta love what they do. And like if anyone's watching, you know, or if this ever goes viral or whatever it is, you got to do what you love, and you got to do what you're passionate about. Don't feel like you got to be pressured into doing certain things or certain jobs that you don't like, you know. I bounced around in college. I don't know about you, Chris, but like I bounced around from like four different majors my first 2 years of college. It was education, health and human performance. Um, then I went undecided, and then I went psychology and addiction counseling, because then I finally figured out like that's exactly what I want to do.
Hmm.
And I think that's the most important part. And I think a lot of people get pressured. And I feel like sometimes you feel like sometimes people aren't ready for college right away. And like there's like this weird stigma and norm, like you got to go right away to do what you got to do. So I feel like if I didn't figure it out quick, I would have been wasting a lot of money.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Do we do it right? Do we do it right? Do we push this on our youth right, man? You
No,
think do you think we do it
no.
the right way?
Uh, I was supremely lucky that I knew what I wanted to do for a long time, just because of my interests and like I recognized that the environment that I came up in, I had a path where I could use skills from that development
Right.
in a very specific way, and that
Mhm.
was the counseling route essentially.
Mhm.
Granted, that changed over time too, but had my situation been different, I would have went to my first semester of college, had no interest in it whatsoever, and then what? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like, what happens if I start going through my generals, I fail out, and now I'm on probation,
Mhm.
and then I'm like, well, I'm not even interested in this stuff anyway, and I don't
Mhm.
know what I want to do, and then that just promotes me to take time off, and then I might not ever go back. I
Mhm.
might not find what my passion is because I'm burnt out on the idea.
Mhm. Yeah, man. I think if it wasn't for athletics, I think I would have been screwed personally. I wouldn't have got my degree in the time I did get it because I think athletics pushed me. But like that was the problem though. I think with a lot of my teammates, they were like being forced into things that like, well, I'm athletic, so I'm gonna go do health and human performance. But like were they
Right.
really bought into that? Like maybe they wanted to be a trainer. And I told Keller my last year there, I was like, if you want kids to get through and buy into things that are interesting, not when I'm talking like there's kids who already know that I'm gonna go be a doctor. I'm gonna play ball, but I'm gonna go be a doctor. The kids are on the fringe. I said, put them through sociology and psychology.
Mm.
Have them get their degrees in that because they could do so much more with that base than an HHP degree. You know, they
Hmm.
can go get their masters. They could go plug in a lot of different spaces. You know, they could do a lot of different things, and it's usable in a lot of different senses. Um,
Hmm.
and I'm just happy I found that because naturally, you know that's what I feel like I was just meant to do, helping, and that's why I like coaching too. It's like passing that knowledge on to the next generation. Um, but it's important because Sid said no 18-year-old should have to decide right away. You're right, and I remember when we were in middle school, they were telling us if you don't know what you want to do right now, the rest of your life, you're screwed. And I always thought that was absolutely insane. I was telling people I was gonna be a dentist. Ain't no shot. You know what I mean? Like I could have
Hmm.
if I wanted to, but like I'm so far away from being a dentist that I told myself I was gonna be when I was 12 years old. But life forms kind of your pathway. I think some people are meant to do certain things, you know? And I feel like we're kind of in those. fears in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? I don't think there's a lot of people that do your job that, if it wasn't from life experience, would be able to perform your job.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like I see these young kids sometimes, and like sometimes I got to take the master degree hat off and just look at what I'm looking at from a pure perspective. What's really going on right here? There's what school social work wants me to do, but what's going to be most impactful right now? Because I've seen this kid before. I'm not saying it was me, but I've seen this kind of kid before.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of know what this kid needs. And it's not for me to sit in this room and try and counsel him and work on his behavior. He just needs like a big homie to go kick it with sometimes. You know, this kid is rolling around on the ground. I tell him, just let him kick it. You know? I don't know, man. I think that's a life experience thing. Some people can't
Mm-hmm.
get their head out of that. You know
Right.
what I mean? They can't get their
Mm-hmm.
head. And you have to, you know, do what's inside that book. Um, but at the same time, I think, like you said, be creative.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're willing to be creative, I think that means you love what you do.
Right. And being able to bypass that alarm system that I think we're all trained and conditioned to have, where when somebody says, and I'm sure you've had it too, where kids tell you horrible things that, they're experiencing, that alarm system doesn't necessarily go off right there. That, like, I'm panicked, I'm freaking out, alarm system doesn't go off. You get to the point where you can just dig into it a little bit more. And I think that that's, you know, a life experience thing too. But I see that all the time, with people who, specifically with like unhoused folks who are really going through it. A simple comment that shows them that I'm a human being too.
Right.
That's all the difference. That breaks down all the walls. I'm not a professional right now. Let's talk about that new Kevin Gates album. Let's talk about,
Right.
what do you think about Nipsey Hussle? Like,
Right.
that's it.
Yes.
That breaks
Yes.
it all down.
Yes. And that's exactly it. Like showing these kids or showing these people that, like, you know, I'm a human being as well, dog. Like I might have the badge, you might have to call me Mr. Wetzel, whatever. But like you're gonna catch, I swear to God, you'll catch me grittying in the hallway just to like make a kid smile, or I'll be like, "Hey, did you check out that latest Fortnite update? You know, like what'd you think about the like?" Oh, Messi, Ronaldo. I'll have these kids doing the debates, and like it's like building that rapport. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Let's go to the chat. Sid says you can't do anything with half the degrees offered. LaFontaine says, true, Sid. Usually have to go get a master's with a lot of things nowadays. I think that's a benefit of a liberal arts school. I didn't know I wanted to do because of the generals, and I had to take, because of the generals I had to take, and I found classes I enjoyed and figured my degree along the way. Exactly. I think that is a part about like doing the generals. Um, that is a benefit. You get to kind of get a taste of a little bit of everything, right? And I think that's why I went education, and I took this class I shouldn't have been in, and I was like, hell no, I'm not ready for this. And then I went HHP, and I was like, I don't think that's really it. 'Cause then I looked at like the money behind it. Um, I was like, I don't know if I could do that. Like starting out making $15 like at a gym, no. So I
Hmm.
went undecided, and I think undecided was one of the best things I could have done. And I think that was part of the issue with some of my teammates. A lot of them were just pushed into things like, okay, well, you're just gonna do this. Da, da, da. No, figure it out, man. But you also got that clock, and you're wasting money if you don't. And I think,
Hmm.
if you're not doing a sport, I think you really need to have like a really good idea. Sorry, I was reading a comment. Really good idea of like what you want to do and really be solid in that. And I think that's also
Hmm.
on parents to help their kids guide them through that process of like, are you really ready? Because dog,
Hmm.
I swear to God, you can go and make 60, 80K going being a bartender, like
Hmm.
downtown Scottsdale, and have fun, not worrying, not going into debt, having fun, doing your thing, than going to college, wasting a bunch of money while having fun where you really should be tapped in. And
Hmm.
I think that's something I was able to do, and you too, because we kept tabs on each other all the time. That was something I was able to do. I was able to separate. Like I still had fun in college, but like I didn't have to drink every weekend. You know,
Mm-hmm.
like I'd go play my video games. I'd get in bed. Part of that was because I played ball and I needed to be up at 4 in the fucking morning day. Um, but like I didn't always party on the weekends. I didn't go to the bars that often. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't find that to be fun. And I think if that's what you're going to college for, man, just live near a college, go to a college town, and just
Right.
work, bro.
Yeah.
Zach saying editing paid video while listening to this after dropping out of film school. Well, exactly, man. Like college doesn't always define you, and there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
successful people that college wasn't for them, and now they're making bank. Sometimes I
Mm-hmm.
wonder, like, dang, maybe the military was the move. You get
I
you,
know.
you get to go see the
Uh,
world. I mean, we talked about, I think, one of Hef and I's old podcasts, like the military. You're good, Zach. The military, like they teach you, they instill discipline in you. Get to see the world, and you actually get paid pretty decent. You get decent benefits if you're in long enough.
mm-hmm.
That comes with great sacrifice at the same time, but interesting.
Right.
Um,
It's another path.
but I've always wondered, man, like, are we doing it right as just like a society? Like, are we doing this right? You know?
Right. Well, you got to think about it too. Like I'm self-aware enough to know that I'm 26
Yeah.
and I still don't really know who I am.
Right.
If you think about it, like I have a lot of life to live. I'll learn a ton as I go, but like at 18, I had no idea
Right.
who I was. Like committing to something for the rest of my life at 18, if I was in a normal situation, that's a terrifying proposition. I don't even know what I like because things that I liked when I was 18, I definitely don't like them now. You know what I mean?
Dude,
So I don't think that there's any way we're doing it right.
dude, I don't even think our brains fully developed at 18, to be completely honest. Especially
I
if
don't
you
think
have
mine does now.
like if you have ADHD, like we both have ADHD. My ADHD is gnarly, by the way. If anyone in the chat wants to know this, um, like your brain develops a little later, right? And like
Right.
I think about like 18-year-old Jake. I was a good kid, but I also just did dumb shit. Like you
Mm-hmm.
don't think things through. I think when you're
Mm-hmm.
like that, like young, like so impulsive. Like from when a kid is like in high school all the way until probably like 22, 23, like probably just so impulsive, And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's like that's just a young man now. Not now, it always has been. But like you put a young man in a situation like that, or just a young kid in general. Like I'm not even saying it's just men that are impulsive, like even young women too, like just doing dumb shit, like putting ourselves in just dumb scenarios, like ding dong ditching in high school, or just like, you know what I mean, doing
Mm-hmm.
brodies in the parking lot. Like we ain't thinking, we're just doing right now, man. But you gotta go tell them, okay, graduate high school, now you gotta go figure out everything right now. I don't know. And
Mm-hmm.
so, like Lori Markkinen, you have to go serve in the military in Finland for a year or two before you
Mm-hmm.
can really start your life. Is that a bad thing to do? Because I feel like that could straighten you out a little bit. I don't know
Mm-hmm.
about that.
That's interesting.
Very interesting, man. Like, because America, we talked about this, I think, in my first podcast. I was referencing some of this stuff. Um, we've always been dominant. But, like, think about how your dad grew up, how my grandpa Mike grew up.
Mm-hmm.
Think about the requirements they had to go through, like in their gym class, or like the standards they had to hold themselves through.
Mm-hmm.
Hard nosed bastards. Very hard nosed bastards. Kenny G's, same thing, right? But then they see like what we live in today, and like, are we soft?
We're soft. Yeah, I was about to say we're soft. Absolutely, we're soft. Yeah, there's no way that we couldn't be. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like the
Right.
difference between what like my dad and Uncle Mike and Kenny G went through versus us. Like there's obviously trials. It's hard for everybody in some way or another.
Right.
But like I go to bed watching YouTube. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they went to bed in pure darkness with their thoughts. Yeah, it's a little different. Like
Bro, Kenny G shared a bedroom with 4 of his siblings.
that's what I'm saying.
You know what
My
I
dad
mean?
grew up without power in his house. They used an
On
outhouse.
Seville Flat. Right. Like we're doing this podcast in the comfort of our like if they had things like
Right.
this back in the day, bro, like it's crazy. And
Hmm.
and I think and let me know if you're not following what I'm going to keep. Let me know if you're not following what I'm I think when you give people so much like gates to bail them out or like so many things in place to like bail them out and not hold them accountable, that's when people start to not only kind of like lose their identity in a sense, but also what we're talking about, not really find what they love or what they're passionate about. Because if there's so many things out there and you're not going to really be held accountable to certain, you know, paths or standards or whatever, are you really going to find out your purpose?
Right. Or are you gonna find your perceived purpose?
Right. Because I like
You
think
know what I
about
mean?
it. Think about it. We got homies our age, man. They're 26. They still out here and they don't know what the hell they're doing. But it's
Hmm.
because sometimes they were just never really held accountable and they never really had to like grind through something or like they didn't know how to appreciate the process because whenever the process came they got bailed out. And I feel like
Hmm.
the process is what you know guides us to what we're meant to be.
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of motherfuckers get I like we've both been bailed out in our own senses, don't get me wrong,
Hmm.
but like in a sense not really. We've had
Hmm.
to go through some things in order to appreciate it, really kind of find out who we are, you know.
Hmm.
That makes sense.
No, it did. Yeah, I think what I said didn't make sense. When you say that, I think of like, so I think we're lucky and unique in a lot of ways, and I have this conversation with the police department all the time. Montana's like a vacuum. Like we grew up in the 2000s to 2010s, but it was really like we were growing up in the 90s in a certain way
Right.
in comparison to folks down here. Like
Mm-hmm. Montana's
we did dumb
behind.
things.
We're behind.
Right. Yeah. We did the things that like, we were out in the woods. We did dumb stuff. Like we weren't raised in this like mold of what society was at like an advanced level
Right. Right.
comparatively. So like when I think about what you're saying, I think of like we were lucky enough to grow up with an identity, and I think it was sports, obviously, or family, whatever it may be, whatever you're passionate about. But in Montana, that was pushed a different way,
Right.
and we saw coaching. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that's yeah,
Right.
you can see it. But then what can I latch onto and become passionate about? That's a scary conversation for people down here, like at least in my experience, because then you latch on to things that are like, I think of politics, man. That's the first thing that comes to mind. That's my identity now. Am I passionate about being a politician? No. But am I passionate about arguing against you? Yeah. And then that just creates this weird dynamic
Right.
where we're never going to get along. You know what I mean?
Right.
What is my identity now?
Mm-hmm.
It's I'm blue or I'm red, and I'm standing firm on that, and that's all I got.
So I'm gonna bring it back. I will get to this here in a sec. I'm gonna bring it back. Montana for sure. Athletics was our identity, but dig a little deeper here, right? What was the identity of athletics for us? For me, I formed my identity through athletics as an escape. Shit popping off in my crib, I'm gonna go shoot hoops. I'm gonna go play football with my friend, like to get away, right? Some kids' identity in sports was, it was as I would hope my kids is one day. They don't have to, dive into sports the way I did in a sense, because I did it to get out,
Mm.
to not see some things. Then there's another part of that where you got another group of kids where they enjoyed it because they watched, Kobe, or they had the hoop outside their house, or they played YMCA and they just loved being a part of team. What I got out of all of that, bro, was when I started to get into games, and this is where like this kind of had to be taken out of me a little bit as I got older, because I realized I couldn't exist in a space and be successful if I was this kind of competitor. Like when I would get into games as an athlete, everything inside of me came out. All the bullshit I had to deal with came out. You know what I mean? And I put so much work in as like a young kid. I would hold that kind of against people in a sense when I was competing. We'd be in the bottom of a football pile, bro. I'd be pinching like third year.
No,
I would be pinching. I would be
yeah,
bending fingers.
same.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
um, but that came from those hard times, and I guess I was expressing it then. So my identity was also in sports, but it was also to start to become expressive through sport. You know what I mean? I started to carry things along with me. And I remember when I got into high school, I was like, okay, I realized I couldn't be that kind of, because I would talk back to refs, I would cuss teammates out, and unhinged kind of in a way. Um, that came from the shit I had to deal with at home. And so what I was kind of getting at through this was like athletics was my identity through the sense of like it was more of like a coping mechanism for the longest time. And then I kind of started appreciating it in a different kind of sense, like, sportsmanship and things like that. Cause I feel like I didn't have sportsmanship until I probably hit eighth grade. I was,
Hmm.
I was, I took it way too serious in a sense. Um, but also those trials and tribulations we had to deal with within the home or within our lives or whatever it was. I think sports was just an expressive way we used. And then that identity, we no longer like I no longer have sports anymore. It's through the work I do because
Hmm.
I'm not pissed off anymore as like a young kid, you know. Sometimes I get pissed off still. But I see that kid now. Or I see kids in similar situations and I'm able to be like, you know, this is why I love this shit. I want to help way in some ways I wasn't help or I was in Great
Hmm.
Falls, my grandpa raised me right, but I'm when I say failed, I just mean like school setting, like I didn't want to focus on school and I think that gets lost with a lot of kids now, like how can I make a kid comfortable?
Hmm.
Um but or how can I set them up to really get reacclimated? But anyways, I don't know, man. That made sense.
Hmm.
I think athletics was it was the ship. It was the ship that kept us out of the streets in a lot of senses. You know what I mean? When I say streets, Great Falls, Montana, but you gotta understand, like some of the people we were dealing with, you're probably dealing with in the depths of LA as well. It
Hmm.
just looks a little different. Um, it kept me away from a lot of situations. Um, but that identity piece, I think that ship of athletics is no longer necessarily there, but it got me to where I am now.
Right.
I don't know,
Yeah.
man. It's interesting because I think like people didn't always have to experience that, and I think that's what I was kind of getting at. People didn't always have to experience like really troubling things, and are when the hard times come, you were talking about with your work. When the hard times come, you're kind of able to tap into that next level or that next
Mhm.
like that sphere where someone would hear something, they'd be like, but you hear
Mhm.
like, okay, what's going on? People
Right.
aren't always ready for that,
Yeah.
and they can't handle hard situations because they've, I feel like in some senses have kind of been bailed out, or they kind of quit through hard times because hard times are important, you know.
Yeah. Forged in the fire, man. That's what I tell everybody. Like you're not born without that alarm system that, when somebody says they want to hurt themselves or like it's not troubling to you in that moment because you see behind that door of like this is a person that needs help. You know, if things were great, I wouldn't have that perspective. I wouldn't have the ability to do that.
I think just hard times create strong people,
Mhm.
and you got to go through hard shit, I think, to be great and to also find yourself. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Right.
And it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be exactly what we're talking about. I mentioned it in the podcast before. Like it could be like getting benched on your team. How are you going to react to that? Or
Mhm.
failing your first NCLEX. Like if you're a nurse, you fail your first NCLEX. How are you going to bounce back from that? Are you going to quit and just go somewhere else? You know, it doesn't have to be this traumatic stuff all the time, but it's something. And to circle it all the way back to what we were talking about before, that started this whole rant on my end. Um, I think that's why a lot of kids in society is kind of the way it is today, is because people haven't. I feel like we allow that too much. Whereas my grandparents, your dad, when they grew up, they didn't have an option.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Growing up in inner city Cincinnati, like you don't got an option. You don't
Mhm.
got Google. You got to go into that damn library and read that book yourself. Take your notes yourself. As Carol Lawson said, handle hard better. Exactly. I like that a lot.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like handle hard better. And that's what I appreciate about Montana. And that's what, like, you said that. You just said it.
Mhm.
Montana's a little behind. We handle things a little different. And I think that's a
Mhm.
good thing. Especially, that Great Falls area, man. It's pretty hard nosed, blue collar for the most part. Like back in the day when I was around Great Falls, like you think, oh, those small town people, man, like they're crazy. But once I met Sid and like got to hang out around Big Tim, I'm like, these people kind of on to something. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
They're kind of crazy in their own sense, but you got to appreciate like how they're wired. And
Different.
and if everyone was wired that way, we'd be in a lot better spot. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because you know, they gotta go fix their ranch door. They gotta go, shovel the snow. They ain't going to work that day. Or you like think of people on the res like Barbie and them, like
Mhm.
they literally working with the cows all the time for their living. And that's work ethic and persistence. You got some cats coming up out here, man. They don't know nothing about that.
Mhm.
So I don't know, dog. Are you gonna be doing what you do forever, or what are you trying to do? You gonna expand?
I don't think it's sustainable forever, just to be honest. Like, I think you're going to eventually hit a point where, like, I hate the term jaded because that sucks. And I hope that I don't ever get there. And I've had this conversation before with people. If I ever get to the point where I don't care about people anymore, tell me I got to get out of here. Because that means that I'm losing a large portion of why I'm doing what I'm doing. But what do I want to do moving forward? I don't know. That's a hard question because there's a bunch of different avenues. I love the degree that I chose for that reason specifically. Like I could open a treatment center. I could do this for 10 more years. I could go up the ranks within the police department. Like I could do a bunch of different things, but I don't have to think about that right now, which is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, if you're content with what you're doing and you love it, why not, man? Um,
Right.
I think like we were talking about, I think there's just such a rush sometimes to make that bag and get the next promotion, and all that is dope. Like you want to get the promotions, you want to get the bag, but don't sell your soul for that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't know, man. It just been reflecting a lot. Like it's weird to see kind of the position we are as like a unit here, you know, in our world. Because moving down to Denver, you're exposed to a lot of different things. Like I already knew this stuff was out here, but like I never really considered how people are wired out here. I understood the issues. I understood like the dynamics in a sense, but I didn't understand how people are wired. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but when you're talking to like a person from Montana to a person who grew up in a metropolitan area, it's a completely different like outlook on life, you
Mm-hmm.
know? I feel like sometimes like when I'm working, I'm like, am I like too on people or am I like an asshole? But I'm
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I'm just very blunt and I'm kind of straight to it in a sense where people kind of like to dance around the issue and I'm just very straight and I think like I don't know, but that's how it is in Montana. Like that's how I was raised or those are the people I was always around. It was like quit the silly shit. Let's just get to it. You know?
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what I mean? Um I don't know. The approach is always different, man. It's always different. And it's just interesting to kind of experience that out here.
Mm-hmm.
But just as a whole, just reflecting on like, damn, man, got for one, you gotta love what you got to do, but at the same time, that's gonna come with trial and error. And I think if anyone was listening to this podcast and my rant, that's what you could take out of it. You know, you're not gonna find yourself by taking the easy route. You're not gonna find your path taking the easy way. If you really want to truly find out who you are, you gotta be able to sit in that fire for a little bit. Um, like LaFontaine said, Kara Lawson said, handle hard better. You know, don't always take the easy route. Don't always look to get bailed out. You want to be passionate about what you do. That's gonna come with some work. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
You feel me? But anyways, I don't know, man. We're at an hour 28. We talked about T Swift. You said Purdy's a bum, basically.
Whoa.
You know,
Yeah, kind of.
well, we'll see, man. I appreciate you coming on. I'm gonna get us out of here in a sec, but I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate the chat. We kind of got a little deep in there. We'll get Christian on and we'll get a little deeper. Pause. Get deeper in the conversation. But I appreciate you coming on, Chris. I hope
Yeah,
you were
thank you.
following me. What I was trying to say there. I hope the
I
chat was
did.
following me. It wasn't the most clear. And see, that's the problem. And so that's one of my problems. I feel like when I'm doing this podcast, I need to like get a notepad and like write down because like my ADHD, or I'll just forget. Like you said something and I like kind of like cut you off and started talking and I was like, fuck. Like
Mm-hmm.
ADHD is
Yeah.
crazy, dog.
I
Wild
always
out here.
explain it like my thoughts are tied in a knot and I can't untie 'em.
Right.
Like I'm not gonna get through it. There's no way.
Right. It might.
And then
It's
how I articulate it is not gonna make sense to you, but I promise you it makes sense to me.
right. And then I'm gonna probably remember what I was gonna say when I go walk away from here.
Yep.
My boxing and MMA teacher, Jordan, fire by the way. You need to come and check that out, man. It's dope gym. He's cool. Um
Get beat up.
we don't even beat each other up and that's like the best part about it. Like we spar, but he's really big on like he's like you go to a boxing gym and you're going to just get thrown in the fire and you're just going to start beating the shit out of someone or they're going to beat the shit out of you. Like in here he's just really just fundamentals like you touch each other, that's even a little too much at times. Like as you get a little higher up, you go a little harder, but like It's cool and it's a good workout. But anyways, he was saying, and this makes so much sense. We don't teach this to our kids, dog. ADHD. See, I was about to get us out of here, but here we go. Um,
Mm-hmm.
he was like, when you're learning something, study for 15 to 30 minutes, and then go take a 15-minute break. Because your brain and like your neural connections in your brain need time to like process and connect everything. And I was like, that's so true.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That is so true. So if anyone's hearing this and you're studying, study 15, 30 minutes, take a 10, 15-minute break, then come back to it. And he does that with the drills, and it's dope. But anyways, Chris, I appreciate you, dog.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm gonna stop the pod. Thank you all for coming on. Video will be coming up on the YouTube. Go check the YouTube. Okay. I need more YouTube followers. I need more page followers on here. We got Chris on here. We talk Super Bowl, UFC 298, and just doing things that you love and why you should do things that you love. But that also comes with the cost of being able to sit in that fire. All right, y'all.